This is the Lady Raider Report, your weekly look at Texas Tech women's basketball from Double T 97.3 and DoubleTSportsNetwork.com.
Time now for this week's edition of the Lady Raider Report, brought to you by DoubleTSportsNetwork.com alongside Chuck Heinz and Jamie Lent. And the Lady Raiders got their season started last week. It was nice to see a lot of new faces for the Lady Raiders, but a 2-0 start to the week, Chuck. And I would guess that there are a lot that the Lady Raiders want to work on, but they would be happy with what the start of the season was.
I think so, and I think where they were really most pleased with is more from a defensive standpoint, just holding teams down like they did. They beat Incarnate Word 78-48. Their best quarter was in the second when they outscored them 26-8. And then Houston Christian, they held them down as well. They won 63-40. But they want to play better defense. They want to play with more fluid. They want things to be more continuous, so to speak. And so it was a little choppy at times in the first couple of games, but you expect that when you have a bunch of new players and you're just trying to get your season started.
Yeah, that's kind of the way of the transfer portal era when you bring in so many new players, whether it's through the high school ranks and you're recruiting freshmen, or you're bringing in new players that have played in other programs. You're trying to mix them in with girls that you currently already have on your roster. And you're mixing in some of them in key spots. It makes it a little bit difficult. It's not as if they're just coming in off the bench and you're going to just ease your way into it. When you put them into the starting lineup, you expect some bumps in the road a little bit, so to speak. So Chuck mentioned first you take down Incarnate Word by 30. Adley Blacklock leads you in scoring in that game. She comes off the bench, goes 4 of 10 from three-point range, ends up with 14 points on the night. Clearly, that's a girl that they feel like can really change things, the way she stretches the floor and shoots from the outside.
No question. They feel like that she can be a spark plug for you. And then, like you said, it changes things from the outside. All those 14 came in the first half. She probably shot maybe a little bit more than what they wanted in the second half. But, she's a volume shooter. And the other thing that we saw is just how quickly that ball gets out of her hand. It's just like a bullet that comes out of her hand, which is great because if your clock is winding down and you got defense coming on, you can boom, pop it over to her, and you know that she's got a quick release. She is not going to let that ball stay in her hand very long.
Yeah, and the three-point shot is such an important factor in the women's game. So when you have a dead-eye shooter like Adley that you can bring off the bench, that just really makes things better for this offense. We saw both in that game, both Bailey Maupin and Jazz Shavers get in double figures as well, 13 and 12 points. Maupin did it in only 19 minutes and on 7 shots. Love the efficiency from Bailey's game. But so far to start the year, I think those two have really stood out, is really being calm leaders on the court for this team. And they did some of that last year as well, don't get me wrong. But it just looks like those two are the real leaders from this squad.
No question. I think that's a carryover from this summer and the off-season workouts, too, of them expressing their voices a little bit more, not only to themselves maybe, but also to the players and then on the floor. The other thing that they didn't really do very well on the Incarnate Word game is they fouled. They fouled 31 times. And so they talked about the big improvement from that game to the Houston Christian game was just in the fouling. They only fouled 13 times against Houston Christian. And basically, they kind of talked to them about, hey, think of the players as a hot stove. Okay, if I touch you, it's hot. Okay, can't touch you a second time. Okay,
right.
And so that really was the comparison. And Coach Planette Pearson telling me, we want them to play defense with their feet, not with their hands, and that is a point of emphasis for the officials this year. So they did learn that. They did do a better job of not turning the ball over in the second game from the first. Shavers had 7 turnovers in the first game. The team had 20, and in the second game, the team had 14 turnovers, but only 4 after the first half. So they did a much better job there in the second half against Houston Christian in the first in turnovers, and better than the first game.
Yeah, in that first game, 20 turnovers. You only had 13 assists, and so that's obviously an area where they want to get better in both of those areas. But that's definitely something in recent years that has been a problem for the Lady Raiders, turning the ball over too much. This year you bring in Danae Fritz to play point guard for you, and so hopefully that will cut down on some of those. Maupin back to her normal position of playing the off guard, but she can still handle the ball, and same thing with Shavers as well. But that's an area that I think, going back to the beginning, when we talked about just having new players. Everybody's got to kind of get used to each other a little bit. So game 2 was Thursday night against Houston Christian. Another pretty easy victory for the Lady Raiders, and Chuck mentioned the defense, and I would agree. I feel like in these first 2 games, the defense has looked a lot better than it did a season ago. I mean, there's some hiccups there, here or there. I felt like in game 1 there were some easy drives to the basket that shouldn't have been there. But Jazz Shavers, another good game with 17 and 4. Bailey Maupin in double figures. But really the thing that jumped out at you about Thursday night's game, Chuck, was kind of the arrival, so to speak, of Sarah Sanogo, who I thought was terrific for the Lady Raiders in the game. 12 points, 5 rebounds, three blocks. She can change things for you on both ends of the floor. It was nice to see her kind of coming out party a little bit.
No doubt. She was our player of the game. And, the other thing about her is she drew 7 fouls and only had 1. Now, the Lady Raiders all total drew 18. So she was just a couple short of drawing half your fouls. And I think the other thing, you talked about the coming out. Remember, she's been playing at a level in junior college where she has been, without question, the best player on the floor, right? And so now she's playing with a lot of people that, hey, when they were playing high school or their other teams, best player on the floor. So she's got to learn how to play with those other best players on the floor. And we saw a lot of that. She didn't take any threes. She was 4 of 10 from the field, hit all of her free throws.
Nice.
And then she
can't always say that about a big.
Right, and then she did allow 2 block shots, but she did get the 3 of the Lady Raiders' 7 block shots in the night. So, yes, it was great to see her. And then coming up, and I know you'll get to this coming week with what we've got with New Mexico and Washington State, but they expect to have Maya Pete back in the lineup. And they felt like if they'd had Maya Pete against Houston Christian, that it probably would have been even a more dominant performance than what they had, because you had 32 points in the paint, but only 12 at the half. Both teams had 12 at the half, so you had 20 of your 32 in the second half.
I think Sarah's really important because of her ability to allow your offense to play inside out. If you have a threat inside, and with Maya coming back, that'll give it to you as well. We know there's great three-point shooters on this team: Shavers, Maupin, Blacklock, on and on and on. Jada Wynn. All of those girls can shoot it well. So if you can play a little bit more inside out and force a defense to respect your inside scoring, which really has not happened in recent years, then absolutely that makes your offense a lot better. So I thought it was great to see her get going on Thursday, and I hope she keeps progressing in that right direction, because she looks like she can be a big factor. Now, the one thing that in Thursday night's game that I thought was the negative for the Lady Raiders, just 5 of 22 from three-point range.
Yeah.
And if you're going to win at a high level, if you're going to win in the Big 12 Conference, you got to shoot it better.
You do have to shoot better, and you're going to get better shooting from Shavers. She was 2 of 7. Blacklock was 0 of 4. So just those 2 right there were 2 of 11. You finished 5 of 22. So they took half your shots, and even Jalen Bristow was 0 for 2, and Bailey Maupin was 1 for 3, and Danae Fritz was 1 for 3, and as far as Jada Wynn, she was 1 for 2 as well. So you didn't have as many opportunities, but you didn't shoot the ball very well from 3 at all.
All right, so let me ask you this, Chuck. After two games in the books, Lady Raiders win both of them decently, easily. Anything that surprises you that you've seen so far?
No, I think one of the things that has surprised me is how quick the lineup has been changing. And Coach Gerlich told us after the Houston Christian game that she's got to work on her rotation, because she feels like maybe that she has changed out people too fast. Like in the first game, you used 11 players in the first quarter. Okay, second game you're using like 10 players, and so what happened was, there was a point in time in the game against Houston Christian where they weren't really playing very well, and she wasn't very happy, and she was calling timeout. It's not like you can go, "Hey, you 3 at the end of the bench haven't played. Here's your time to shine," because they'd already played. So I think just how quickly the lineup and the rotations have changed. That's been maybe the biggest surprise, and I think that she'll kind of allow her starters maybe to be in a little bit longer, and some of these other players to be in a little bit longer. But they've gotten themselves in foul trouble too.
Yeah.
But just been part of the reason why they've had to take things out.
Yeah, one thing that has surprised me a little bit was the fact that we haven't seen that much of Freelon at this point. I feel like she's such a major factor for you last year, and she's got with her athleticism, her quickness, all the above. I think she's got the ability to help you on both ends, and she's kind of been quiet so far.
She has. I mean, she turned her ankle right before the start of the season, about 10 days or so before the start of the season. So I was even wondering if she was going to be available for the Incarnate Word game, but she appears to be, all good to go. But part of that, too, is the players in front of her maybe been just a little bit better.
Sure,
And
absolutely.
you can say the same thing about Jordan Merritt, because both Freelon and Merritt got a ton of starts last year, and neither one has started a game this year. So it speaks to the talents that you brought in, and now that the depth that you have.
I thought Jordan was really good in game one, coming off the bench, 9 points and 7 rebounds in limited minutes. I thought she gave you great energy, and she's a girl that I think is always going to play really good defense. So I thought she was good in that game. All right, one other thing that I feel like moving forward, the Lady Raiders are really hoping to see change a little bit. I mean, the job that Jada Wynn has done to change her conditioning and her body and all the above, she looks like a way more versatile player than she was a season ago, and kudos to her and for the strength and conditioning staff for helping her, because she can just do so much more now. But she hasn't shot the ball well, which was kind of her bread and butter last year. And I mean, she's just too good of a shooter for that to continue.
Yeah.
I'm sure that will change, but that's another girl that I expect to get going a little bit more than she has so
Yeah,
far.
and she played 20 minutes the other night against Houston Christian and only got 2 shots off.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're right, and they want to play at a high, fast-paced game. So that's going to be incumbent upon people like Maya Pete and Achol Magat, when she's in there, to kind of keep up with them, and they're going to be rotating them in and out pretty quick. But they want to play high pace, and with Jada's conditioning, that will certainly help that as well.
No doubt. So on to this week, 2 more games for the Lady Raiders. Chuck touched on them. Tomorrow night, Tuesday night, they'll play New Mexico at 6 o'clock. New Mexico is a team that was picked to finish 6th in the Mountain West preseason poll. They're 1-1 so far this season. They've got a 2-point loss at home to Northern Arizona. And then they took down Morehead State on Thursday, 66-56. On Saturday, it's Washington State at the USA. Again, a 6 o'clock game. They're 2-1. They have an overtime win over Eastern Washington. They got thumped by nearly 30 at Stanford. And then on Sunday, they beat Idaho 71-60. A little bit of a step up in competition compared to last week.
Yeah, and I think New Mexico, I mean, they only returned 4 players from last year, and only one of those players had really a huge number of starts, that had 29 starts. The other thing that was really crazy about the Northern Arizona game is New Mexico had 14 offensive rebounds and 2 second chance points in that 2-point loss.
Yikes.
I know, right? And then, it just, I guess, pardon me, it was 2 second chance points against Morehead when they beat them 66-46, and then they lost to Northern Arizona. But still, they didn't shoot the ball tremendously well, but they've got a bunch of people back, and not a bunch of people back, but just some points that, already have kind of surprised me. Vianney Cumber, who is a returner for him, she had 23 points in one game and 14 in the other. And so she's going to be the person that you really have to guard. And then a new player, Destiny Hooks, who's from Vincennes, and she is from Indianapolis, had 21 in her last appearance. So they got a couple of shooters there. And then for Washington State, I mean, Kami Etheridge coming home to direct her team.
Sure.
And so they'll have her team will be fired up to play against the Texas Tech team.
A step forward in competition, but really the way the schedule works out for the Lady Raiders this year, you're basically 2 weeks away from playing much stiffer competition in the Virgin Islands, and so Coach Gerlich can't wait too long for this whole thing to gel together. It's got to happen here quickly.
Yeah, I think that's probably what they've been working on over the last couple of days. Is, hey, listen, in order for you to kind of keep doing what you're doing, we're going to have to play better. We're going to play more fluid from an offensive standpoint. We can't turn the ball over. You've got to know where you're supposed to be offensively, and the defense has got to step that up. Because look, we know this about New Mexico. It's a Super Bowl for them. Anytime they come to Lubbock, they feel like that they've got little man syndrome or little girl syndrome, and so they feel like that this is kind of their opportunity to shine. And even though none of these kids really kind of have that experience, you've got one kid from Albuquerque. Vianney Cumber is from Albuquerque, from Sandia High School. She's it. Otherwise, they've got somebody from the Congo. They've got somebody from Germany. They've got somebody from Spain, Portugal, Mozambique, Charlotte, North Carolina, and Finland, Jamie. So they got they've got a international team. It's the United Nations coming to play the Lady Raiders on Tuesday night.
It should be fun for you and Mark Finkner to pronounce pronounce all those names then.
Yeah, well, I'm working on it.
Good luck with that. Good luck.
Fink will have it down. He'll
He'll
be spotless.
absolutely nail it. No question about it. So 1 week in the book, 2 win for the Lady Raiders. Hoping for more of the same this week, but at the same time taking steps forward in the right direction. I think we've seen so far that Shavers and Maupin are the girls that we expected them to be. I think you want to see more girls contributing offensively. Logan Johnson is another one so far that we haven't heard much of. So there's plenty of other girls.
She's tough though.
Yeah. Absolutely. That you want Jalen Bristow, another one that I think is going to be a way bigger factor.
She's a gazelle.
Than she has so far this season. So there's a lot to still improve on, a lot to gel together for the Lady Raiders, but a good start to say the least, and hoping to continue that this week.
You're off and rolling. You got New Mexico and Washington State. Should be fun this week.
No doubt about it. All right, that's the Lady Raider report for today. Don't forget to check it out every week at TSportsNetwork.com.
Your weekly deep dive into Texas Tech women's basketball. This is the Lady Raider Report from Double T 97.3 and TSportsNetwork.com.